What is up, everybody? So like I promised, I'm going to make a pretty quick video discussing DXYZ and a lot of these daily charts in general. It has been a very, very long day and long week, so I am not going to go too crazy with this video. I need to travel tomorrow, and I am very tired and want to go to bed. So let's see. I mean, obviously everybody probably has been following along enough and knows the whole deal. Trump election kicks off this whole big move in stocks. Starts off innocuous enough, right? Tesla really only gapped up 25 bucks, or sorry, excuse me, 35 bucks. And even that move seemed a little bit ridiculous just because the options were not pricing anything like that in. Again, why do I say that? Because Trump and Kamala were essentially 50-50, you know, 55-45, 60-40. Who gives a shit? It's rounding error, right? And so in theory, if there's a 50% chance that Trump wins, the implied volatility should be priced so that essentially you make, you know, double your money, right? If there's half a chance that you're going to lose 100% and half a chance that, you know, Trump wins and you're gonna double your option, in theory, if it's a perfectly efficient market, that should be how the options market would price that move based on the election odds. Obviously, that is not what happened at all. And from the very first day, clearly volatility was underpriced as this held up and kept going, which says nothing for how epic this move was. I've not pulled up the options, but I would imagine, you know, a 300 call on 2 weeks or whatever, say the 15th, you know, expiring this Friday, November 15th. I don't know what this call would have been worth. I'd imagine like a couple bucks, and this ended up going to 350. So you'd get potentially 25x. You know, again, I've not fact checked that, but anywho, these moves ended up exploding, right? And so I think some of the most popular tickers were Tesla, Palantir. We had Coin, of course, going with Bitcoin. We had DXYZ, which is what I'm going to get into quite a bit. And so really, when I look at this, Tesla made a 35-point gap and kind of had this tight range where we reclaimed and closed. Not strong, but not weak either. It held up pretty well. Next day, fairly innocuous, 10-point up bar. We then break 300 off this day's open, which first of all, that was a mega long. Like the intraday was beautiful on that thing. We break out off it was towards the open, I believe, and just explode. So that was one really cool zero DTE opportunity. And then we closed super, super strong. Like this did not let up that day. We even had, you know, also, actually, I'm just going to pull this up. Beautiful, beautiful consolidation. Yeah, here's the 300 breakout as I discussed. Boop, 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 boop. 300 breakout, beauty. The other beauty of course, is this setup here. Like that is as perfect as a consolidation as you can really get. But that's not really what I want to talk about overall. So what was happening, especially starting on this day, 11-8, and I do think a lot of these moves are driven by option flow, number one. The other thing is I think with the advent of overnight trading, I do think you get a lot of international capital flows pushing into these US markets now. I do think overnight trading really, really started to link global markets together where people can trade the US market, which of course is some of the most liquid and also just awesome markets in the world. I think it's the most awesome, you know, because I think everybody wants to be trading Apple, Tesla, GME, AMC, and all the other crap. And so you would get this dynamic where on this day, after hours and overnight, this started to really, really ramp. And even though after hours we trickle up, we then just explode into that overnight. Like I think we were exploding into the high 330s, which already seemed like a what the hell move. We then open up even higher. We do kind of have that fail. You know, we have the drive, we kind of fail, but then we reclaim. And then what happens after hours is we push again. So that's a lot of Tesla, and there's a reason why I'm discussing so much on Tesla. But now let's sidestep this and talk about Palantir or even APP. So APP, this is an earnings move. So some people are talking about this, but the reality is like like, it's really hard for me to deduce how much of this move is due to earnings and how much is due to just the current market euphoria. Without a doubt, some is due to the market euphoria, but nevertheless, look how well this held up today. Like, I do not want to start messing with this. The other thing is, look how well this reclaimed on the prior day. So APP wasn't on my list. So Palantir. Palantir is another case, and if I'm not mistaken, I mean, this I haven't been following as closely, but I believe this was, this was earnings on the 5th, then we just kept going with everything else. So here's what I would say. Palantir is one of the most absurdly valued stocks in the market, right? But I'm a trader, not an investor, but I don't understand who owns this dog shit because it is so insanely overpriced. Palantir fundamentally will not be able to grow into its valuation probably, again, I have no idea what I'm talking about, but probably over the next 10 years. So do I think this stock is a total joke from an investing standpoint? Yes. But nevertheless, on the daily chart, these bars weren't expanding like we saw in Tesla. This is just a very consolidatory, that's not a word, but whatever, bar. And then we start to go, but then we have this bar, which, you know, the ranges aren't expanding. And look what the volume's doing. It's going down, 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 down. So that is extremely, from a trading perspective, disinteresting to me. Then we've got stuff like coin. So here's the issue with coin. Like, if I take Bitcoin, you know, if I take Bitcoin, let me go back over 2 years. So my issue with coin is Bitcoin from those lows 2 years ago has gone up roughly 5x. Then we had the mother of all breakouts, mega breakout. Like, no one should ever be short Bitcoin into this. Like, obviously this is just a massive long. This is probably one of the best market setups. I know it's not a market, but like, I mean, it's not really a stock either, obviously. But this is one of the best setups I've seen in a really, really long time. This might have been one of the best daily charts of 2024. But to my point, if we take this Coinbase moves obviously very, very well with Bitcoin, of course. And so Bitcoin's doing the mega breakout, right? And this had kind of been lagging into that, right? So Bitcoin is breaking out to highs, and this is starting from all the way down there. So to some degree, I worried that this could be some level of catch up. And, you know, so like then we really gap with this move. But again, like at this point, 280 is a massive breakout. So like I almost view this somewhat day one-esque. And again, it's just moving so correlated to Bitcoin that it's just like, it's just probably like, not that it won't collapse or can't collapse independently, but if I'm bullish Bitcoin, like why am I going to short the thing that's pretty much just moving as a levered move with Bitcoin? And that's kind of the same logic with MSTR. And these, I mean, MSTR was even way relatively strong to Bitcoin. So like all the shorts in this are just getting taken to the cleaners. Absolutely wrecked. And again, why would I short something that's moving levered to Bitcoin when Bitcoin was the most bullish setup of this year? So none of that really made sense to me. And now the one ticker I haven't talked about so much is DXYZ. Okay. So like all the nuances matter, which is why I pose these questions to people on Twitter, and people on Twitter will literally, you know, we get an answer like, oh, you know, I just study the range, or I study this one nuance, or I study this one thing. And it's like, the reason why most people are struggling is because they're literally looking with the most simplistic lens ever. And it's just, this is not an activity where you can just put in the base amount of effort and the base amount of analysis and the base, like to have edge versus the market, your analysis needs to be better than the market. If you're just like, oh, this has a big range, well, guess what? That's how you end up shorting coin and making no money. That's how you end up shorting MSTR and getting hosed. That's how you end up shorting PLTR and making no money. You know, like there's such a massive difference in performance if you just short DXYZ versus the tickers I just named. And the reason for shorting and being bearish on DXYZ versus other ones, there's many of them. It's so many things, right? So let's talk about this. What is DXYZ? Okay, first of all, it's not an ETF. An ETF is not the same as a closed-end fund. An ETF generally is trading in line with its net asset value, and it has very effective corrective measures to be arbed out and trade and issue new shares against it. A closed-end fund does not. The reason why this is diverging from its net asset value is because it's a closed-end fund, and these often can diverge, and the mechanism to converge is much, much harder. Not that I fully understand all these things. So one of the points I'll get to is like, and this isn't that huge of a factor for me, but it's definitely a factor. In theory, DXYZ has a shelf out there. Again, I've been too busy to really super dig into the filings and stuff. Supposedly DXYZ has a shelf out there that's just waiting to get an SEC approval based on stuff. I don't know why it's taking so long. I don't know what the constraint is. Above my pay grade right now. But if DXYZ starts issuing more shares, this NAV, like the share price versus NAV, it's going to totally converge. Like if that becomes effective and they can issue shares, like boom, this is just collapsed down. You know, I think the NAV is what, $6 or something now. So why is this going up? First, we did squeeze initially, and look how hard this got crushed. Like, yes, we squeezed, which was, the whole thing's ridiculous and stupid. Like, yes, you can buy this as a trade, but if you're buying this to invest, you're a moron, which I'll get to on this point. You know, essentially, there's no way this price will ever be sustained over the long run. Literally 0% chance. And sure enough, you got smashed and you lost 80% plus of your money. So we were trading still at a premium. And so the interesting part, though, is, again, this is a closed-end fund. It issues its NAV. I don't think this updates more than quarterly, which is fine, right? It's not as if these holdings are going that crazy. And so it does own SpaceX. So essentially, DXYZ is a way for investors to backdoor buy SpaceX, which is currently private. And unless you're an accredited investor and willing to kind of pay placement fees, you know, most people can't access it. So, of course, Tesla's exploding. Of course, people, you know, Elon Musk effect with the Trump win. Okay, buy DXYZ because it has SpaceX. Now, because of this massive premium it's at, over 100%, I'm sure there are a shit ton of people short. At least at IB, this is, you can short as much as you can eat. This is not hard to borrow, no locate issues, etc. So what ends up happening is this starts to explode. Now keep in mind, you can look up the holdings and you can see what SpaceX is doing and everything else. Like SpaceX, like is only a yes, it's a large portion of this closed-end fund because of how much it's gone up, but in no way is it going up anywhere amount to justify this. Like SpaceX would need to probably go up like 100% to justify a move like this. Or sorry, not 100%, like 1,000%. Obviously, SpaceX is not going up 1,000%. It is a very large company. So, you know, the net asset value obviously is going up, but from $5, like, I don't know, maybe the net asset value is at $6.50. Again, I have no idea. It's such a rounding error to this move that it's silly to even care or think about. Like, in no way will this sustain. And again, if they can then issue some of those shares, it's just game over. But what you see on Twitter is retail is driving this up. Oh my God, you can buy SpaceX. You can buy SpaceX. Retail does not understand that, of course, buying this is in the long term very, very dumb. Again, if you're trading this long, you know, whatever, you know what you're doing, you're getting out. If you're holding this for the long term, oh, let me buy SpaceX, you're literally buying SpaceX at like 1,000x its current valuation, which is, of course, stupid. You are guaranteed to lose money pretty much. That being said, price range really expands. Now look at what the volume is doing. The volume is not doing what those other charts were doing. The volume is expanding and growing. So now the other thing is this also, in my opinion, is going to trade most similar to Tesla, just because Tesla is also trading on the Elon Musk effect. Neither of these tickers are trading on earnings. Neither of these tickers are trading due to the rise in Bitcoin. Yes, there's correlation. It's all the same big picture trade. So of course they're going to be correlated, but nevertheless, DXYZ and Tesla should have the tightest linkage. So now let's get more granular. Yes, super euphoric day. And now a lot of people that are short, you're scared that it's going to do this. Oh my God, we're going to 100, we're going to 100. So everyone's scared shitless, and that's why kind of this is popping. And that's why all you can eat shorts are probably covering and, you know, getting taken to the cleaners. You're trying to make $5 and boom, you're down 40. Yeah, that hurts. That hurts really, really bad. So this keeps on going, you know, this holds up, this huge volume. Then we gap, and Tesla's gapping. So now let's start to get into oh God, here we go. The nitty gritty. Okay. So Tesla is running after hours, then into the overnight session. Again, I have a theory that it's just international flows that wants to be part of the action. Oh my God, I can buy Tesla, tee hee. And it just drives us up higher. This day, and this is, for reference, 11-8. We make this, we break 350. And some of this, it's kind of hard to describe, but some of these moves, like especially the $300 break, a lot of these moves feel very driven by options and gamma to me. Just something about like the steadiness and the breaks, but whatever. And so this starts to go, then this cracks. Now, if we take like the last, 3 days, okay, Tesla goes up, it consolidates and holds up the whole day. Tesla goes up, it consolidates, makes another leg. Even this prior day, Tesla had, we fail, but then we reclaim. There hadn't been that much weakness for at least a couple days. So it's kind of interesting that this does that drive and then it cracks super hard. Even as this was cracking, when we couldn't bounce here, I was just like, oh my, this death candle and that inability to bounce is super interesting. I think this was actually what I would call the first tell in the weakness. Nevertheless, actually, let me jump to DXYZ. Keep in mind, this is 11-11 at about noon. DXYZ on 11-11. Okay, so now DXYZ did the opening drive, and this cracked super, super, super hard. And this generally should be the death. When you go from 50 to 38, that is just pretty much in general game over. So what happens here? We start to bounce, and then, Tesla around this time is starting to really go. And what happened here was then we super mega bounce. And the most interesting part of this, and again, this goes to all the people that don't believe in reading the tape. The most interesting part of this was that this move was extremely driven by the box. There was a buyer at $45 just soaking on this thing, buying, then 46, 47, buying, somebody was buying the shit out of this. Again, if you know how to read the box, you can tell that it is a single buyer. So many people are like, oh, how do you know it's a single buyer? That's just a statement out of just total ignorance because you do not understand reading the box. So please, learn rather than be like, oh, there's no way to know. Again, of course you can't be 100% certain, but hey, if someone leaves the same graffiti sign all over the city, it's probably the same person. But anywho, so then Tesla's breaking out, and this is unable to do that. Let me actually get an exact timestamp. So at 11 is when Tesla breaks out. What is DXYZ doing? It's rolling over actually. And so what happened here is this buyer, he finally collapses. So this was the death candle. So I would view this whole move right here, from even 44 plus, this to me was just one buyer, just driving this higher. But what's interesting is we cracked insanely hard and we're not participating with that Tesla breakout. In fact, we're rolling over. So that buyer collapsing, and finally being done, this to me was the, oh my God, was that why this was squeezing? Is whoever was getting squeezed or whatever, is that the last of him? And so that was the first tell in here when we're able to break through that buyer and exhaust him and get under 45 while Tesla is breaking out. So this to me is the first tell of oh my God, we couldn't break those highs. Death candle melt, lower high, and then the buyer's exhausted, and that might have been the buyer, potentially contributing to this whole squeeze to begin with. So that's a really, really big sign. And so this is probably the real, this is the first sign. Then that buyer failing to bring this to highs and this fail is probably, the second and third really. Then the other thing is this closes very, very weak. Tesla really reclaimed. This closed very weak. Even more interesting is, excuse me, even more interesting is after hours, Tesla starts ripping. Tesla's ripping into the 8 p.m. overnight session while this can't go anywhere. So that relative weakness is a huge, huge tell. The volume was a huge tell. That buyer being exhausted was a huge tell. Now let me get to the biggest sign for me. Excuse me. So again, like I said, Tesla starts ripping into the after hours, and I'm just like, holy shit, I can't believe this is going to do this again. Then if you check the overnight session, what ended up happening was we rip to highs. We go to, I think, 366, 367. And so again, it's my theory that these are all international overnight, Asian clients that are trying to get in on the action. The last 2 days in a row, pattern recognition matters. The last 2 days in a row, it has been driven to insane heights in the overnight session. Every single time the buyers in the overnight session are rewarded, we keep going higher. And interestingly, like my opinion, I even texted this to a couple of my friends, was if this overnight session fails, that's probably game over for all this stock. Like if we open up back in this range, I felt it was going to be game over. Sure enough, in the overnight session, we crack back to below 360. We can't really go anywhere. We open around here, and then yes, Bitcoin kind of leads the way, but then this cracks insanely, insanely hard. For us to go to 360 all the way down to 328, like that is game over. Like that's, we technically break prior bar lows pre-market. This is the biggest difference of any of the price action we've seen for days. So Tesla was my number 2 choice. DXYZ was my number 1. And so let's discuss that for a second. Why is DXYZ my number 1 choice and Tesla my second? Because Tesla, like, there is actually a fundamental reason for this to be up. Like, many could argue, like, I don't know what the right price for Tesla is. How much will Elon Musk and the Trump presidency help Tesla? Who the hell knows? But clearly it's probably positive. It's like, I can't really quantify that. Like, yes, I think the market agrees Tesla should be up some meaningful amount. DXYZ though, it's just totally fugazi. Like literally with near certainty, in the long run, that ticker will be down 90%. Again, with near certainty. So the amount of Tesla's breaking out above 300. We're approaching all-time highs. People are getting super, super psyched about this. Like, there's very good rational reasons for why Tesla should be going up. DXYZ is pure fugazi. So like you have a lot of people that are hyper bullish, uber bullish on Tesla. There's real flow to it. Like real buying legitimacy. DXYZ, it is just dumbass fugazi. Yes, again, if you're a trader just making a trade long, that's fine. If you're an investor doing that, that is the dumbest shit on earth. You are nearly guaranteed to lose all your money. You are buying something at a 500% premium to its net asset value. You should not be in the market if you're doing that. Any retail trader buying this as an investment, not a trade, like it's the dumbest thing on earth you can ever do. So the amount of gravity on DXYZ is insane. Like it's just a matter of when will that get absolutely crushed. Tesla, it's like, I don't know, what's the right price? 310, 320? Maybe the right price is 340? I don't really know, but this should be up. DXYZ, fugazi. And so what ends up happening is DXYZ pre-market is totally unable to, it was weak in the after hours. We're opening down below these prior day lows. That for me is backside. So whenever, like if I have no position, which I did, but if I had no position, I'm just shorting that break anyways, right? Like that's the entry. And like, yeah, you can be scared, but like, again, on that pop, it was just one buyer driving that. We really shouldn't have been going up there anyways. And yes, if you're doing prior bar highs, yes, the risk is high against those highs, but the probability of this working is just so high. So high once that cracks. So that for me was just like why DXYZ was so good, and its backside. So it's just like, any pop is just probably going to be faded on this so ridiculously hard. This is like, again, it's just a matter of gravity. This had the forced covering. This is no reason to be up. It's up the most on a percentage basis. versus the moving average, it's up 200% higher. It's just all Fugazi with insane gravity. And again, some of the dumbest longs on the planet are buying this. It's retail that don't understand what they're doing. You can just go on Twitter. And again, I'm not talking shit about the traders that are just doing this to be in and out and rather momentum. That's separate. There are people genuinely buying this because they're trying to get exposure to SpaceX, but don't recognize that they're literally guaranteeing a loss. They should not be in the public markets doing that. So yeah, that's why DXYZ was my number one. Tesla, for all the reasons mentioned, is number two. And especially, really, this goes without saying, but that 336 or whatever break, that's prior bar lows, and it just set up beautifully. And let me rephrase that. It set up well, not amazing. Like this was a kind of stronger bounce, but again, we didn't go to highs. But that's the money shot. Like this is where it truly becomes backside. So yeah, that's probably a way longer video than I wanted to make. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. And like I even said, by the way, like it was my tweet this morning. Like it was clear that these were going to be high probability backside today. And that means that's when you want to attack. Most people lose so much of their money fighting on the way up. Then once it does crack, they give up. They wave the white flag. When you want to be cautious, we then finally fail overnight. We fail pre-market. We break part. This is the time to attack. I don't know what's going to happen in the coming days, but this is the time to attack. Not fight trend, give up. It's respect trend, fight. And most people do the opposite. No idea what will happen. I will be traveling tomorrow. I will try to get some sleep and not look at any of this. All right, everyone, have a good one. The nuances matter. A lot of details to study. What a market, and not conducive to me not looking at markets. So bedtime at last.